Well, good morning. We're going to begin our presentation. I'd like to welcome all of you to the Interaction of Processes and its Importance to a Successful Audit webinar. My name is Joseph Krolikowski and I'm the Technical Director of Perry Johnson Registrars. Couple of notes for everybody. All of our participants today are on mute, but we absolutely want to take your questions, so please use the question portion of the dashboard and we will address your questions at the end of the presentation. Also, copies of our presentation, the slides, will be available for download shortly after the presentation is concluded. And this webinar and all other PJR webinars will be available for reviewing on our website under previously recorded webinars. Our topics for today, we're going to have a little bit of discussion on the background of this requirement, the requirement's roots in 9001-2008 and 9001-2015. We'll have some discussion on both what is and what is not a process, and then we've got an extended look at some strategies for you to consider in meeting this requirement with minimal changes to your existing documentation. Back in 2014, PJR was given a mandate from our accreditation bodies. We were told that we had to start taking a harder line in our assessment of interaction of process or IOP documents. And this was rooted in the ISO 17021 standard. Now that's a standard that PJR is held accountable to. That's sort of ISO 9001 for registrars. And that standard includes a provision that reads in part as follows. An audit program for the full certification cycle shall be developed to clearly identify the audit activities required to demonstrate that the client's management system fulfills the requirements for certification. Now, the portion of that phrase that was kind of centered on is the client's management system. We are expected to ensure that our auditors perform their audits and document their audits in such a way that they reflect what you, our client, presents to us as your management system. Management systems, of course, are supposed to be made up of processes. Now, where this process gets difficult for us, where this activity gets difficult for us, is when we have an interaction of processes document that is unclear or confusing or doesn't reflect processes. We are required to adhere to your interaction of processes and only to the interaction of processes when we prepare the audit report, the audit plan, the audit notes, and so forth. If the IOP has not been effectively prepared, our auditors have a very difficult time of reflecting your processes appropriately in the audit package documents. So we've instructed our auditors to start raising this as concerns during the audit, and if necessary to issue nonconformances to any client that has an IOP that doesn't identify the processes in an appropriate manner. So you might say, well, where is that specifically required in ISO 9001? Well, in 9001-2008, we have 3 clauses that we point to as the primary justification for this requirement. The first 2 are both taken from section 4.1. In 4.1a, it says that the organization shall determine the processes that are needed for the system and their application throughout the organization. And in 4.1b, the organization shall determine the sequence and interaction of those processes. Now, in addition, we have in 4.2.2 a requirement for a quality manual, and specifically a quality manual that includes a description of the interaction between the processes of the quality management system. Now, if we turn our attention to ISO 9001:2015, the requirements are quite similar, and they're all taken from section 4.4. In 441, it again states that the organization shall determine the processes needed for the quality management system. In 441 subclause B, it states that the organization shall determine the sequence and interaction of these processes. And then we look to 442, where it states that the organization shall maintain documented information to support the operation of its processes. Now, there's a number of things that are taken away from that clause, one of which is that we have to have a clear picture of what the processes are in order to support the operation of processes. So what is a process? How do we define a process? Well, we can begin with the official definition for process as presented in ISO 9000. ISO 9000, of course, is the fundamentals and vocabulary standard. It was published in a 2015 revision, the same day that ISO 9001:2015 was published. And it defines process as follows. A set of interrelated or interacting activities that use inputs to deliver an intended result. Now, the key aspect of this is the phrase interrelated or interacting activities. This establishes a key aspect of what a process is not. You should not be thinking of process as a single step. It's a series of activities that are focused on a shared goal. We're going to see some examples of that in just a minute here. Now, in terms of what are typical process designations, we put together a list here of what the more common designations are that we've seen: sales, purchasing, production, shipping, design and development. We see these as named processes many times over. Many of our clients, almost all of our clients, have at least one of these processes within their quality management system. Now, we obviously emphasize that the IOP, the interaction of processes, it has to reflect what you understand your processes to be. But they must be processes. They cannot simply be steps within a process. If your understanding of your quality management system is that it's made up of 4 core processes, for example, sales, purchasing, production, support, it's completely acceptable for your IOP to reflect as much, so long as we have a clear picture of what the processes are. Now, as to what is not a process, we've sort of already tipped our hand on this. The IOP documents that are rejected most often are the ones that present steps within a single process. So what do we mean by steps? Well, if we're given an IOP that has these steps: create work order, issue production schedule, complete work order, package product, ship product, it's conceivable that all 5 of these are part of a single process, but it's not conceivable that these are individual processes by themselves. That's going to raise concerns for us. Another concern is if we have an IOP that presents sections from the applicable standard as the organization's processes, that's also going to be regarded with concern. Because if you think about it, how many organizations have a process that they call resource management or product realization? Those are titles from the ISO 9001 standard. Those are not necessarily your processes, nor should they be. You should have your own processes, your own way of understanding what your system is made of. When we get an interaction of process document that reflects these types of items as processes. These sorts of things should be written up as non-conforming during the context of the audit. Now, in terms of what you can do to meet this requirement, we recognize that for a number of our clients, the IOP was not something that was thrown together. It was put together with a lot of careful thought and consideration. And we're also well aware that for many of you, you've had this IOP for a long time. And it's a little disconcerting to be told that something you've had for this long and has passed audit assessment for many years is now suddenly unacceptable. So for those types of situations, for many of you, a few tweaks are all that are going to be needed to meet this requirement in a more effective way. What we're going to do over the next couple of slides is we're going to review a sample of an interaction of processes document, and we're going to improve it in two key ways. Now, I do want to note that this is not an example that's reflective of any particular client. This example was created solely for the purpose of this presentation. So let's begin with the raw interaction of processes. Okay, so here we are. We have an IOP that has 12 boxes and 2 decision diamonds. Now, are we to conclude that all 12 of these boxes are individual processes, that this organization has 12 individual processes? Well, if we start reading into it a little bit here, we have a process called sales and work order issued, issue a purchase order to a supplier, stamping. Are these individual processes? Probably not. And this is where when we receive an item like this, it's quite confusing as to what the actual processes are. The first improvement we're going to make to our test model here is we're going to identify the support processes. Now, some of the interaction of process documents that get rejected, they don't have a specific place for identifying what the organizations consider to be support processes. Now, in terms of support versus core processes, this is not something that ISO 9000 or 9001 draw any particular distinction on, but this is something that we see typically. As a result, for a lot of companies, the things that are considered management or support get left off. So what do we mean by management or support processes? We mean things like management review, internal audit, corrective action, training activities, reviewing of quality objectives, things of this nature. So let's put this on our test model. Okay. You'll note now in the lower right-hand corner, we have a standalone box called support processes. And we've identified this as being a collective activity, and we've also identified this as being a shared activity in terms of these support activities support the entire system at large. Internal audit should be an assessment of the entire system. Corrective action could potentially impact the entire system. Training will impact personnel in all other areas and so forth. So for that reason, it's not connected to any individual process, but rather it's presented as being connected to everything. And that's kind of the intent here. Now, our second improvement to this is going to be to create a key, an IOP key. And this is the most popular strategy that we've seen and accepted for this type of issue, where we have an organization with an IOP that they want to keep, something that they've had for a long time that they feel is effective. They will input a key, and say, okay, this is how I'm going to flag what my processes are. Now this can be done in a number of ways. You can use numbering, you can use alpha characters. We've chosen to use color coding, as we'll see in just a second here, for our test model. This does a couple of things. It enables the IOP to stay as is. It's unchanged, but it serves the quality system and it serves the audit process by naming the processes that are made up by the various process steps. So let's see what this looks like now. Okay, so now in the lower left-hand corner, you will note that we have a process key, and it names 6 processes. We have sales order entry, purchasing, production, shipping, quality, and support. And now in the body of the IOP here, we can see sales order entry is made up of 4 steps. Purchasing is made up of 2 steps and 1 decision. Production is made up of 3 steps, and so forth. Shipping, as it happens, is a standalone process. Support is a standalone process. But we now know what are the processes that make up this system. We've accomplished 2 key things here. We know what the processes are, and we have proper reflection of support processes. This is an IOP that is ready for audit assessment. Now obviously there's more than one way to accomplish this. We have seen over the years a number of different approaches, and we've accepted a number of different approaches. So we'd like to share some additional examples on how this has been approached for you to consider if you are in the process of developing an IOP or if you're looking to change your IOP entirely. Here's a rather simple model. We have kind of a top-to-bottom flow. We have, in this instance, 7 key or core processes called out. And again, the support process off to the side, made up of multiple pieces. This particular IOP is absolutely acceptable. Here is another example. This one's a little bit busier. The intent of this IOP is to show the multiple cross interaction between processes. What I like about this particular IOP is how unique the processes are. This is a company that put a lot of thought into what are our processes. We have a process here called quote. We have a process here called overhaul. We have a process here called inventory management. These are not your typical processes. These are very much unique to this particular organization. And again, you'll note management related off to the side. We can conclude that that is a composite of the various support activities. This next example here, this is typically referred to as swim lane. You will note on the left-hand side, the far left, that this is actually a set of 4 named processes. We have sales, purchasing, production, and support. What's neat about this particular model is that it enables you to show that the sales and purchasing process start kind of independent of each other. They meet up in the middle, so to speak. Both have an impact on the production activity. In this particular case, the organization has got sub-steps that are included within each of the core processes, the named processes. And again, the support processes are called out down here as providing shared support to the system at large. Another very good model. This particular organization here chose to use highlighting as a means of showing what their core processes are. There are 5 of them in this case. Again, you will note the unique names that are given: repair and return, distribution. Again, we're looking at something that's very personal, very unique. And again, the whole idea that if it isn't highlighted, it's to be considered support. So in total, we would have 6 named processes here. These 5 in the center plus support. In conclusion, we want to ensure that our clients are getting a value-added audit and at the same time meeting all applicable requirements. It is considered a very basic and very important piece of the overall process to ensure that your processes are fully understood, fully developed, and that you know what your processes are. This serves not just the audit but the system at large. We do hope that the points of today's presentation will help you develop a better understanding of what your processes are and how to show them. I do thank you for your time today. At this time, I will unlock the question portion of the dashboard and see if we have any questions today. All of our presentation materials will be available for download shortly after we're finished, and the presentation will be available for reviewing shortly after we're finished. Any other questions today? Okay, well, I do thank you all for your time. I hope you have a pleasant day.